Yeah, welcome. How you guys doing, man? How you guys doing, man? How you guys doing? Yes. Yes, welcome. Yes. Today's segment is we're still gonna continue with our consuming, and some of you like might think like, like why is he talking about consuming all the time? Consuming, we consume a lot of things. Like, consuming is a lot of things. Like, explains a lot of things. It just doesn't explain like, for you to eat food. It explains like a lot of things that we consuming nowadays. So so you kind of have to kind of like, you know, really like have time, like, to really look, into this the marathon that I'm in, like, so um, it's very important, like, so because it's not in the book, but a journey is always explained more, than somebody, write in the book or anything like that, so books is cool too, cool to have books, like, but I learned my journey, somebody who actually experienced it, the way I used to eat before, and then transition themselves, like, to a different diet, like, and me looking at them, like, you know, and I can see, like, the way they behave, like, it's totally different that I used to see, like, on people, because, like, we see everybody always like angry all the time. Your parents are always shouting at you, screaming at you, that's somebody that's crazy, like, so, and now you've seen somebody who's always happy all the time, like, nothing really comes out in their mouth, or nothing really like that makes you feel like you don't really want to hang around with that person, because just the way they look or whatever, like, you just feel like somebody is just always happy, and if you're around them, like, you just feel like it's a great company, you just want to talk to them. So when you look at somebody like that, so you want to know really, like, why is he always happy, like, so so yeah, so that's the way I learned, like, my journey, like, I didn't learn like how to read to become somebody like different or anything like that. No, I don't know, somebody who had the experience that I had, So then I start living like the same way as the person that I was watching, like, also, like, so, and I also feel good also, like the way he was looking on the, on the screen, like, so that's the way I was like, man, I don't know, man. I was like, I don't know. Let me buy some of his stuff, let me just watch his videos, and his story time was, which is, by the way, it's that's the savior, so he always came up with like stories all the time, like, so he wasn't really like scientific, he didn't want to, explain to people like the, to go out and read books, like, so I myself, like, I'm like 50-50 with, with books, like, and because books are so tricky, because somebody else wrote it, and based on their word, like, and they can write anything down there, like, because you need to have an end, so, and books never have an end, like, they have always, like, after you read this book, go get another book for you to understand certain things, like, so so that's why I used to like, I'm like, man, I'm reading this big book, like, like, I'm thinking like, man, this is it, this is the book that I'm just gonna be reading and understanding whatever things that I need, about the body and the autonomy, so I understand a lot of things, like, in just these books that I'm reading, like, but nah, man, these big books like send me to another, like, so I grabbed another book, like, read that one, and that book sent me to another book for me to understand the heart, and then for me to understand the liver, I was like, man, the intestine, the gut, you know, how it really works, and you know, the fluence, nervous system. So I was like, there's so many, like, you read, like, then I understood, like, really, like, you know, I learned very, very quickly on somebody experience, but it took me like 5 to 6 years, like, you know, for me to read a book, for me to really understand, like, you know, what was written in the book, like, you know. So I kind of have to memorize, like, some words. And some of the stuff just, like, disappeared, like, I didn't understand. I'm like, yo, man, I'm reading this book, like, for almost 6 years, like, you know, I should at least have something in my brain where it's tell me exactly, like, you know, what I should be doing or eating or whatever it is, like, you know. But yeah, you know, so then I understood, like, okay, maybe books might not be for me, you know. So because I did learn very quickly about somebody who just told me, you know, a journey story, like, you know, so I gravitate more to that than reading a book, like, you know. So that's crazy. So I was like, okay, you know, I think like a journey or somebody experience, you know, you gravitate to that more. That's the reason why people always watch, you know, YouTube, you know, they watch, like, you know, podcasts, you know, they watch movies, like, you know, and some of the movie might not be real, but, you know, but in your mind you want to make it real because you're watching it. You're not really like reading anything. You're not forcing yourself to read something that's not really like something that, you know, you would read, like, you know, but you will watch it, you know, because it's easier. And obviously you listen it also, like, you know. So yeah, so and I had this conversation with my mate, you know, and because now it's almost like not almost like it's like you know, we tend to read also, you know, but we read so many things, and of course, you know, they have, like, everybody has a smartphone now, and everybody has a laptop now, everybody can just go look up certain things, you know, very, very quickly on Google. You know, if somebody says something, like, you know, you obviously want to go and check it out straight away, like, you know, is it really real what the person's talking about, or is it fake, whatever it is, like, you know. So so that's the reason why I find, you know, reading sometimes very, like, information that people like having it on Google or whatever online, like, and I find it very, like, tricky, like, you know. So, and because it's so tricky, you know, people coming out and really, like, saying things, you know, but it doesn't really reflect the way they're living, like, you know. It's not really like go hand in hand, like, you know. You know, because everybody has a different world right now, like, you know. So people giving each other, like, different world all the time, like, you know. You should, like, read this, like, you know, so then you can see the world differently. You should read this book, then you can see the world differently. You should read this book so you can see the world differently. You know, you should take this, like, you know, so then you can be high and read and see things, like, you know, so you never seen this before, like, you know, so you can see and be better than the other person, like, you know. Yeah, you know, so we in that world, like, you know. So information comes, like, really not really from you reading somebody else's thought, like, you know. So you need to have your own original thought, like, you know. So you do, so you can then understand, like, where you at and the environment that you're in, like, you know, so you can see, like, really what's really around you, like, you know. But because you don't really want to see the world, what's really around you, you want somebody else's thought in your brain, so you then can function, like, where you at, like, and you don't really understand where you at, but you want to, like, it's just, no, man, you know, you gotta really, like, trying to figure out, like, what's your environment, like, you know, why you're in that situation, you know. So, and it's not really something that's, like, big thing or anything like that. You need to go out there and be like Einstein for you to understand the world. Like, nah, you don't need that kind of crap. Like, nah, man. Why? You don't need that. Like, so when I do have this conversation with somebody who is more religious than the other person, and then the other person might be less religious, but they still believe in certain things, and they tell you like, for you should also read this, so you can see the world the way we see it, like, and but when you look at them when you look at the way they're living, like, they don't live like really according, like, what the stuff they be reading, like, so you have to step back a little bit, like, and see, like, okay, the question you gotta ask to them, like, now look, man, because they tell you like a lot of things, so they'll be like, look, man, in the world that we're living in, is a test, so you need to behave certain way for you to go to heaven, like, and that's come from a person who's like Islamic or even like Christians, they have the same type of like literature, so they have like the same kind of like view, like, they have to be behave certain way, or go through somebody, to give their life to some person, so that person can actually take them, like, to a different world, like, for them to live a little bit more better, like, because in their world, in their mind, they'll tell you that themselves, like, that they're living, like, in the world of hell, like, so that's like the Christians, like, but in Islamic, they tell me always, like, they live in the world of test, they've been tested by God, like, so that means, like, in the world they're living, like, it's not really like real, so you have to think about it, like, so if you are very sick, like, as a person, like, and you still read, for you to be a better person, for you to go to heaven, like, and you feel sick, like, so that means, like, the world you actually living in is like, it's really real, because if it was a test, like, nothing would be like really real, like, it'd be fake, because, like, if somebody want to test me to do something, like, that person is already like, faking his reality and my reality to be even friends, like, why would you test me, like, in the first place, like, so that's, so it's really like all these things, like, people been saying, like, you kind of have to put your mind into it, like, really to understand, like, why those people are actually saying things like that, because if you think that you're living in the world of hell, and the world that you're gonna go is gonna be better than the one that you're in here right now, so your doctrine is actually telling you, like, that the world that you live in right here is hell, so you have to go through someone who came actually to die for your sin, so that's one understanding, like, for you to understand, like, what's really a sin, like, so, but for them, like, it's hell, so, but you see, like, a lot of people also, they're very sick people, like, so they have, like, problems with their liver, problems with their heart, like, so it's saying almost like the world that they're living, like, there's problems that cannot be fixed, like, that's what really they're telling you, like, they're telling you, like, the world that we're living, that was created for us, like, it cannot be fixed, like nothing cannot be fixed, like nothing that we do, like, cannot be resolved, or any problems resolved, because we all see the world as like hell, like, so when you see the world that way, that means, like, the partner that you with, is a sinner, because the world is a sin, like, because it's hell, So when you make people who are sinners, so they're only gonna adapt, like, in the world of hell, like, that's the only thing they're gonna understand. Even the language also will be also sinners, because the world is hell, like, anything we do is hell, like, we do anything that we do, like, it's always wrong, 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 wrong. So we only waiting, to go and leave this place, like, but we trying very hard, like, to be good people so we can go to heaven, like, which is the test, like, so that's a little bit more crazy, like, so. But then you have people who are, like, more conscious, which I did talk about the conscious thing. I won't really, like, talk about it, like, the conscious part, like, conscious just means, like, to be aware, so, but you're aware and what, like, because the conscious people also sees the world as chaos, like, so everything is just crazy and people are crazy. You're aware, you see, you like out of the matrix, and so you can see the world the way it is, really, everybody's just against you, and but most of them, like, people who are, like, conscious, aware, they have a doctrine where they have to take certain, like drugs or something like that, so like they have to take, like, certain, like, medicinal, like, so they're, like, on mushrooms or like weed, like, the ones I always see, they're always, like, on, like, weed and mushrooms and all that, like, or ayahuasca. They go to ayahuasca to have, like, an experience of, like, awakening, so and it's very, you have to understand, like, everything they're actually talking about is always, like, escape certain reality, like, you can call it reality, whatever it is, like, but they escape the world that they're in here today, which is very, 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 like, disturbing, because not only you escaping, like, the world that you're in here, you basically want to live, like, the skin that's actually gonna help you, like, for you to survive the world that you're in, like, so you have to put certain things in your body for you to actually survive and live the world that is encoded, like, in your brain, because not even encoded in your brain, like, encoded into your genetics, so then you can live based on your genetics, like, what you should be eating and what you're supposed to see and how you should behave and the people that you should be hanging around with, and you should feel certain things, you should feel, like, so, but once you are always in denial by saying, like, the world that you're in, like, it's always hell, you're always going to see the world always like a hell all the time. So basically that you see in everything, the husband that you with or the wife that you with, like, yeah, sinners, so the children that you're gonna give birth also, they're always gonna be sinners also, because you see the world as sin. You a sinner also because you just want to escape this world also, because the world that was created for you is a sin also. That's just not really, that's not really, like, why, So when I talk about, like, all those consuming things, like, it talks about so many, like, you watch some of the videos, like, you see that it talks about, like, you take certain things, it makes you feel certain way and you behave certain way, like, and people don't really want to be around you because they also feel also that you taking things, exactly the same things that you taking, like, the same things, like, but you telling the person, like, that you're different. So the different part is oh man, that thing is funny, man, as fuck, man. Like, you, both of you are seeing the world as hell, like, so where is really the difference, like, so when both of you, like, consuming certain things, like, so what difference, like, you have for you to tell the other person, like, that you are different, like, than the other next man, like, or the other next person, like, what's different, you know? So when I'm saying about like all this consuming part, it's like, but really what you guys are really doing is like, it's just telling yourself like, that you don't really want to live, you don't really want to enjoy here, you don't really want to, do the things that you really want to do because, yeah, that person is bad anyway, so you don't really like 100% in, you're going into a relationship with somebody, it doesn't even have to be a like romantic relationship, whatever it is, like, or even like a friendship, you're not really like 100% in, you one foot in, one foot out, so you both get yourself like hurt, in certain things that you don't really understand because you don't really understand, like, how you feel about somebody, like, you don't want to feel like loved by the person because you want to give love to that person as well. So both of you like coming into a relationship like you don't really want to be around each other really, but because somebody said it, because you want to do it, so it's funny, like, so when I'm saying about this consuming part, like, I'm saying to you, bro, you have to take a little bit of step back, for you to really understand like why, you don't really want to be around certain people, like, why, why, like, you have to want to be around some people, you have to want to, like, you want to, be friends with someone, you want to have a relationship, you have to want to, like, you cannot just like, nah,